While my husband lay in a coma, I cleaned the one place he always kept locked, his closet. Deep inside his old army boots, I found a letter postmarked 1975. I smiled at the memory until I saw the bank ledger hidden beneath it. I froze in horror. My husband had kept this hidden all these years. Welcome to her Kindle stories. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and gave my video a like. Now, let's jump into the story. I'm sure you'll enjoy it till the end. Ana Flores sat at her kitchen table in the quiet suburbs of San Antonio, staring at the steam rising from her coffee mug. It was a Tuesday morning, and in Anna's house, Tuesday meant laundry. The house was perfectly still, the way it always was after Kenneth left for his weekly golf game. For 43 years, Anna had built her life around these quiet routines. The countertops were wiped down, the floor was swept, and the bills were stacked neatly by the door. She was proud of this life. It was predictable. It was safe. She took a sip of coffee, enjoying the silence. She looked at the clock on the microwave. Kenneth should have been halfway through the back nine by now. He usually called around noon to let her know he was heading to the clubhouse for a sandwich. But the phone rang at 10:15. Anna frowned. It was too early. A small knot formed in her stomach, the kind of instinct only a wife of 4 decades develops. She picked up the landline receiver. "Hello. Is this Mrs. Flores? Mrs. Kenneth Flores." The voice on the other end wasn't Kenneth. It was a woman, brisk and professional, with the unmistakable background noise of a hospital emergency room behind her. "Yes, this is Anna," she said, gripping the phone tighter. "Mrs. Flores, your husband has been brought to Methodist Hospital. He collapsed on the golf course. It appears to be a severe stroke. You need to come right away." The coffee mug was still warm on the table, but Anna felt cold all over. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. There were no questions, no time to ask if he was awake or if he was in pain. She just grabbed her purse and keys, her hands shaking so badly she dropped them twice before she could get out the door. The drive to the medical center was a blur of highway signs and red lights that she barely saw. Her mind raced through 1,000 scenarios. Kenneth was strong. He was stubborn. He had never been sick a day in his life, aside from a bad flu in the 90s. He couldn't just collapse. Men like Kenneth didn't just fall down. They were the ones who held everything else up. When she arrived, the chaos of the ER assaulted her senses. Nurses moved quickly. Machines beeped rhythmically, and the smell of antiseptic was overwhelming. A doctor in blue scrubs found her in the waiting room. He looked tired. He didn't have the face of a man bringing good news. "Mrs. Flores," he said gently, guiding her to a chair. "Kenneth has suffered a massive stroke. We've stabilized him, but the swelling in his brain is significant. He is currently in a coma. Can I see him?" Anna asked, her voice sounding small and thin like a child's. "Briefly, but I have to be honest with you. The next 24 hours are critical. There is a chance he may not wake up." Anna stood by his bedside for an hour, holding a hand that felt heavy and limp. Kenneth looked smaller lying there, stripped of his bluster and his loud voice. Machines breathed for him. Wires monitored a heart she had listened to for 43 years. But eventually the nurses needed to work, and the doctor returned. "Go home, Anna," he said, using her first name now. "There is nothing more you can do here tonight. You need to rest. If anything changes, we will call you immediately." Walking out of the hospital felt wrong, like leaving a part of her body behind. But Anna was a woman who followed rules. The doctor said go home, so she went home. Pulling into the driveway, the house looked exactly as she had left it, but it felt completely different. It felt like a tomb. She unlocked the front door and stepped into the silence. It was deafening. Kenneth's golf shoes weren't by the door. His jacket wasn't thrown over the banister. The coffee mug was still on the table where she had left it that morning, a relic from a life that had existed just 4 hours ago. Anna wandered through the living room, touching the back of his recliner. Panic started to rise in her chest, tight and suffocating. What if he didn't wake up? What if this was it? She couldn't just sit there. She couldn't sit and wait for the phone to ring with bad news. She needed to do something. She needed to prepare. If the worst happened, if Kenneth really was gone, there would be a funeral. People would come. There would be arrangements to make. Her mind latched onto a practical thought. The suit. If Kenneth passed, he would need his good dark navy suit, the one he wore to weddings and funerals. He hadn't worn it in years, and she wasn't even sure where it was. Kenneth was fiercely private about his side of the walk-in closet. He called it his office. He had always forbidden her from cleaning in there, claiming she messed up his system. "Don't touch my things, Anna," he would snap if he saw her trying to organize his shelves. "I know where everything is. You just leave it be." For years, she had obeyed. She was the good wife who respected his space, even as the rest of the house was kept spotless by her hands. But Kenneth wasn't here to stop her now. And if he was going to die, he needed to look presentable. Anna walked into the bedroom and stood before the closet door. She took a deep breath, wiping a stray tear from her cheek. This was something she could do. She could be useful. She could make sure he was ready, just in case. She opened the door. The smell of him, old leather cedar and stale tobacco, wafted out. It was messy. Boxes were stacked haphazardly. Shirts were jammed together on the rack. It was chaos. "I'm just finding the suit, Kenneth," she whispered to the empty room, feeling a strange twinge of guilt for disobeying him even now. "I'm just going to straighten up a little." She stepped inside, pushing aside a heavy winter coat. She didn't know it yet, but she wasn't just stepping into a closet. She was stepping into the wreckage of her own marriage. She reached for the suit bag in the back, but her foot bumped against something hard on the floor. She looked down. It was a pair of old, dusty army boots, pushed deep into the corner, hidden behind a stack of shoeboxes. Anna paused. He hadn't worn those boots since the 70s. Why were they still here? Why were they hidden? Driven by a sudden, strange curiosity, she knelt on the floor. She reached out and touched the worn leather of the boots. She intended to move them out of the way, but as she lifted the left boot, she felt something shift inside. It wasn't empty. There was something stuffed deep in the toe. Anna's heart beat faster. She shouldn't be looking. This was his private space. But her hand moved on its own, reaching into the dark interior of the boot. Her fingers grazed smooth paper. She pulled it out. It was a bundle of letters wrapped tightly in plastic. She sat back on her heels, the bundle heavy in her hand. The silence of the house seemed to press in on her. She wasn't just a wife looking for a suit anymore. She was a woman holding a secret she was never meant to find. And as she looked at the faded handwriting on the top envelope, she realized the panic of the hospital was nothing compared to what was about to happen. Anna sat back on her heels, the cold floor of the closet pressing into her knees. The bundle of letters felt heavy in her hand, heavier than paper should feel. For a moment, she just stared at it, the plastic crinkling slightly under her grip. Her heart was hammering against her ribs, a fast, rhythmic thumping that echoed the panic she had felt at the hospital earlier. She put the bundle down on the floor, pushing it away as if it were hot to the touch. Not yet. She couldn't look at it yet. She needed to calm down. The doctor had told her to rest, but her mind was racing too fast for sleep. She turned her attention back to the closet. It was a disaster. Kenneth was a man who demanded order in every other part of his life. His garage tools were outlined on a pegboard. His bills were filed alphabetically. But this closet was his chaos. It was the one place he let things pile up, and now Anna understood why he never let her in here. It wasn't just messy. It was crammed with 40 years of things he couldn't let go of. "All right, Kenneth," she muttered to the empty room, her voice trembling slightly. "Let's see what you've been keeping in here." She started with the shirts. She pulled them off the hangers, folding them into neat piles. Some of them were threadbare at the collars, shirts he hadn't worn since the 90s. Why did he keep them? She moved a stack of sweaters and found a series of shoeboxes lined up against the back wall. They were dusty, the cardboard soft with age. Anna pulled the lid off the first box. She expected to find old photos or maybe spare change. Instead, it was filled to the brim with receipts. She frowned, picking up a handful. They weren't for big purchases like a car or appliances. They were small, insignificant scraps of paper. A gas station receipt from 1998, a diner receipt for a burger and fries from 2003, a ticket stub for a movie she didn't remember seeing. She squinted at the faint ink on a receipt from a steakhouse in Austin. It was dated 12 years ago. Kenneth hated Austin. He always complained about the traffic whenever they had to drive through it. Yet, here was a receipt for a dinner for two on a Thursday night. She felt a prickle of confusion. Why would anyone keep trash like this? It didn't make sense. She put the lid back on, feeling a strange sense of unease. It was as if she was looking at the footprints of a man she didn't quite recognize. She stacked the boxes to the side, telling herself she would shred them later. It was probably just a quirk of getting older, she reasoned. Old men became hoarders sometimes. It didn't mean anything sinister. She moved deeper into the closet, pushing aside a heavy wool coat that smelled of mothballs. Behind it hung his old military dress uniforms, preserved in plastic garment bags. Kenneth had been proud of his service in the Army. He didn't talk about it much, but he kept the uniforms immaculate. Anna ran her hand down the sleeve of the jacket. She remembered how handsome he had looked in it when they first met. He was thinner then, with a full head of dark hair and a smile that could stop traffic. That was the Kenneth she fell in love with, the man who wrote her sweet notes and drove an old pickup truck. Seeing the uniform brought a small, sad smile to her face. He was fighting for his life right now in a sterile hospital room, and here she was invading his privacy. Guilt washed over her again. She should stop. She should close the door and wait for him to come home. But she couldn't. The closet was half cleaned now, piles of clothes creating a barricade around her. She had to finish. She reached the back corner, the darkest part of the narrow space. There, pushed behind a broken vacuum cleaner, were his old combat boots. They were the standard-issue black leather boots from 1975, scuffed and worn, the laces stiff with dirt and age. She hadn't seen these in decades. She thought he had thrown them out when they moved into this house 20 years ago. Anna reached out and grabbed the left boot to move it. It was surprisingly heavy. It didn't feel like an empty shoe. It felt like there was a brick inside. She frowned, tilting the boot upside down. Nothing fell out. She reached her hand deep inside, past the ankle, into the toe. Her fingers brushed against something smooth and cool. It was the plastic bundle she had touched earlier, the one she had tried to ignore. She pulled it out into the light. It was a stack of envelopes, about 2 inches thick, wrapped tightly in a clear sandwich bag and secured with a thick rubber band. The plastic was yellowed, brittle with age. It had been wrapped with care, designed to keep moisture and silverfish away. Kenneth had wanted these preserved. Anna sat there, holding the package. The air in the closet felt thin. The receipts were strange. The uniforms were nostalgic, but this felt deliberate. With shaking fingers, she snapped the rubber band. It broke, instantly dry-rotted, and fell to the floor. She peeled back the plastic bag. The smell of old paper drifted up, a musty, sweet scent mixed with a faint trace of perfume. Not her perfume. She looked at the top letter. The envelope was small and rectangular, the kind people used for thank you cards. The handwriting was elegant, looping cursive in blue ink. It was addressed to Private Kenneth Flores. She looked at the postmark. October 14th, 1975. Anna let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. 1975. That was the year they met, but it was months before they had started dating. Kenneth had been stationed in Georgia then. This must be from a girlfriend he had before her. "Oh, Kenneth," she whispered, shaking her head. A wave of relief washed over her. It was just an old flame. Everyone had a past. She had kept a few letters from her high school boyfriend in a shoebox in the attic for years before finally tossing them. It was sentimental. It was harmless. She almost put the stack down. She almost put it back in the boot and walked away, satisfied that her husband was just a sentimental old fool holding on to his glory days. But something made her stop. The stack was thick, too thick for a short fling before he met her. She lifted the top envelope, revealing the one beneath it. The second letter was postmarked June 1976. Anna froze. They were married in March of 1976. Kenneth was her husband in June. Why was he getting letters from a woman in Georgia 3 months after their wedding? Her hands started to tremble uncontrollably. She flipped to the next one. 1978. She flipped again. Faster this time, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. 1982. 1990. The stamps changed. The price of postage went up. The handwriting on the envelopes changed slightly, becoming a little more jagged, a little more rushed, but it was always the same looping blue ink. It was always the same return address, even as the years marched on. 2001. 2010. Anna felt like she was drowning. This wasn't a past memory. This wasn't an old girlfriend he never got over. This was a library of betrayal. Kenneth had been receiving letters from this woman for their entire marriage, through the birth of their daughter, through the purchase of this house, through his retirement party, where he gave a speech about loyalty. She reached the bottom of the stack. Her vision blurred with tears, but she blinked them away. She had to see. She had to know how long it went on. She picked up the final envelope. The paper was crisp and white, unlike the yellowed ones from the 70s. It looked new. She looked at the postmark. San Antonio, Texas, October 2025. Anna dropped the letter as if it had burned her. It fluttered to the floor, landing face up. Last month. The most recent letter was dated just 3 weeks ago. The room spun. This wasn't history. This wasn't a relic buried in a boot. This was happening now. The woman wasn't in Georgia anymore. The postmark said San Antonio. She was here. Anna sat alone in the closet, surrounded by her husband's old shirts, staring at the letter. The silence of the house was no longer peaceful. It was menacing. Kenneth wasn't just hiding a memory. He was hiding a life. And he had been lying to her every single day for 43 years. Anna didn't move for a long time. The closet, usually her husband's sanctuary of order, felt like a suffocating box. The most recent letter, the one postmarked from San Antonio just 3 weeks ago, lay on the floor where she had dropped it. It stared up at her like an accusation. But Anna knew she couldn't start at the end. To understand how her life had become a lie, she had to go back to the beginning. She picked up the yellowed envelope from 1975. The paper was brittle, and the glue on the flap had long since dried out, popping open with a gentle touch. Anna pulled out the single sheet of lined notebook paper. Her hands shook so badly the paper rattled in the quiet room. "Dear Kenny," it began. Kenny. No one called him Kenny. He was Kenneth to everyone, his boss, his friends, and even Anna. Seeing that nickname felt like seeing a stranger touch her husband. She read on. I know you said it's over. I know you met a nice girl in Texas, and you want to do the right thing by her. I'm not writing to change your mind. You made your choice. But I have to tell you something before you go for good. I'm pregnant. I'm keeping it. You don't have to be involved if you don't want to be, but you deserve to know. Anna lowered the paper. The date on the letter was October 1975. They had gotten engaged in December. Kenneth had known. When he got down on one knee in the restaurant on the River Walk, asking Anna to be his wife, he already knew another woman was carrying his child. He had looked Anna in the eye, promised to love and cherish her, all while carrying this secret in his pocket. A sick feeling rose in Anna's throat, bitter and sharp. She forced herself to pick up the next letter. It was dated 6 months later. He's a boy. I named him David. He has your chin. David. The name hung in the air. Kenneth didn't just have a past. He had a son named David, who was now 40 years old. Anna thought of her own daughter, Sarah, born 3 years after they were married. Kenneth had cried when Sarah was born, saying he was so terrified of being a father. But that was a lie, too. He had already been a father for 3 years by then. Anna reached for the stack again, tearing through them now, no longer caring if she ripped the envelopes. She needed to see the life he had hidden. She needed to see the timeline of her betrayal. The letters from the early 80s were short. Updates on teething, first steps, school plays. But then, tucked inside an envelope from 1985, a photograph fell out. Anna picked it up. It was a picture of a boy, maybe 10 years old, standing in front of a Christmas tree. He was holding a red bicycle. But Anna wasn't looking at the boy. She was looking at the man standing next to him, his hand resting proudly on the boy's shoulder. It was Kenneth. He was wearing his favorite blue flannel shirt, the one Anna had bought him for his birthday that year. She remembered that shirt. She remembered washing it, folding it, ironing the collar. She remembered him packing it for a business trip to Atlanta. I have to go for the regional sales conference, he had told her, kissing her on the forehead. I'll be back Sunday. He hadn't been at a sales conference. He had been spending Christmas with his other family. Anna felt a sob catch in her chest, but she swallowed it down. She looked at the date on the back of the photo. December 26, 1985. She closed her eyes, the memory flooding back. That was the year Sarah had the chickenpox over Christmas break. Anna had been up for 3 nights straight, dabbing calamine lotion on her itchy, crying daughter, exhausted and lonely. She remembered calling Kenneth's hotel room in Atlanta, hoping to hear his voice, but there was no answer. He had told her later that he was in meetings all night. He wasn't in a meeting. He was assembling a bicycle for David. She opened another letter, this one from 1998. David got into the state university. We are so proud. Tuition is due next month. I know money is tight, but we agreed on this. Please send the check to the usual P.O. box. And another from 2005. The wedding is in June. He really wants you there, Kenny. He knows you can't sit with the family, but just having you in the back would mean the world to him. I need help with the catering deposit. It's more than we expected. The receipts. The boxes of receipts she had found earlier suddenly made sense. The cash withdrawals. The bad investments Kenneth complained about. The reason they never took vacations to Europe. The reason she drove the same sedan for 15 years while her friends got new cars. Kenneth wasn't bad with money. He was supporting 2 households. Anna did the mental math. Tuition, weddings, cars, braces. For 40 years, every time Anna had clipped a coupon or put back a nice dress at the store because we need to watch the budget, Kenneth had been funneling their savings to Linda and David. She wasn't just the wife. She was the financier. Her frugality, her sacrifices, her penny pinching had paid for David's life. She reached for the final letter, the one from last month, the one postmarked San Antonio. Her hands were steady now, but it was a cold, dangerous steadiness. She pulled out the note. Kenny, the drive from Georgia is getting too hard for me, and I want to be closer to you now that you're getting older. We sold the house. David found us a place in San Antonio over on Laurel Heights. It's only 20 minutes from you. Now that you're retired, maybe you can get away during the day more often. We can finally have some real time. Anna stared at the address written at the bottom of the page. Laurel Heights. It was a nice neighborhood. Old money. Expensive homes. She looked at the wall of the closet, at the rows of Kenneth's neatly hung suits. She realized with a jolting clarity that she didn't know the man lying in the hospital bed. The Kenneth she knew, the quiet, steady, hard-working man, was a character he played when he walked through her front door. The real Kenneth was a man who lived in the spaces in between, a man who could look his wife in the face for 4 decades and lie without blinking. She felt the floor drop out from under her. It wasn't just sadness. It was humiliation. She thought about all the times she had defended him to her friends when he missed dinner parties for work. She thought about how she bragged about his dedication to his job. She had been protecting his cover story for him. She had been his accomplice and his victim at the same time. Anna looked down at the letter from 1975 and the letter from 2025. The beginning and the end. They bookend her entire adult life. Everything in the middle, her memories, her marriage, her trust, felt like smoke. It wasn't real. She stood up. Her knees cracked, stiff from sitting on the hard floor for so long. She didn't bother putting the letters back in the boot. She didn't bother wrapping them up. She gathered them all, the whole sorted pile of them, and walked out of the closet. She went into the kitchen and sat the stack of letters on the pristine granite counter. She looked at the clock. It was early afternoon. Kenneth was still in a coma. He couldn't speak. He couldn't spin a story. He couldn't tell her it wasn't what it looked like. For the first time in 43 years, Kenneth couldn't control the narrative. Anna picked up her car keys. She wasn't going back to the hospital. Not yet. She looked at the address on the recent letter again. Laurel Heights. She needed to see it. She needed to see the other life. She needed to see what her money had bought. Anna walked out the door, leaving the coffee mug from that morning still sitting on the table, cold and forgotten. She had a new destination now. Anna stood with her hand on the doorknob, her car keys biting into her palm. She was ready to drive to Laurel Heights. She was ready to confront the woman living in the house that shouldn't exist. But a cold, hard thought stopped her in her tracks. It wasn't a thought about love or betrayal. It was a thought about math. Laurel Heights was expensive. It was one of the priciest neighborhoods in San Antonio. Kenneth had been a regional sales manager for a paper supply company. He made a good living, but they weren't rich. They lived in a 3-bedroom ranch house. They drove cars until the wheels fell off. They clipped coupons for groceries. How could Kenneth afford to buy a house in Laurel Heights for another woman? Anna turned away from the front door. The heat of the anger that had propelled her out of the kitchen suddenly cooled into a sharp, icy suspicion. Tears were for the weak, and Anna wasn't feeling weak anymore. She was feeling played. She walked back down the hallway, past the kitchen where the stack of letters sat, and straight back into the bedroom. She stared at the closet. The mess she had made earlier was still there, the shirts on the floor, the empty shoeboxes. But she knew she hadn't looked hard enough. She had found the emotional secret, but she hadn't found the engine that kept it running. For 43 years, Kenneth had handled the money. All of it. Every time Anna had asked about their investments or their retirement accounts, Kenneth would give her that patronizing smile, pat her hand, and say, "Don't worry your pretty little head about it, Anna. It's too complicated. I've got it handled. You just worry about the house." She had believed him. She had trusted him. She thought he was protecting her from the stress of tax forms and market fluctuations. Now she realized he hadn't been protecting her. He had been blinding her. Anna stepped back into the closet. She didn't care about keeping things neat anymore. She grabbed the shoeboxes of receipts she had set aside earlier and dumped them out onto the floor. She kicked through the piles of paper. Gas receipts, diner receipts, trash. He kept the trash to look busy, to look like he was tracking every penny. It was a decoy. "Where is it, Kenneth?" she hissed, throwing a stack of old magazines across the room. "Where did you write it down?" Men like Kenneth didn't do things digitally. He didn't trust online banking. He liked paper. He liked things he could hold. If he was sending money to Linda and David for 40 years, there had to be a record. Kenneth was too meticulous to just hand out cash without tracking it. He treated his life like a business, and every business had a ledger. She turned to his suits. The row of dark jackets hung like silent sentinels. She started patting them down. She checked the pockets of his gray tweed jacket. Nothing. She checked the navy blazer, a wrapper for a peppermint candy, and a lint roller. She reached for the charcoal gray suit at the end of the rack. It was his special occasion suit. He had worn it to his retirement party 3 years ago. She remembered that night. He had given a speech about how he was looking forward to spending his golden years with his lovely wife. Everyone had clapped. Anna had blushed. She plunged her hand into the inside breast pocket of the jacket. Her fingers brushed against something rigid. She pulled it out. It wasn't a wallet. It was a small black pocket notebook, the kind with the stiff cardboard cover. It was old. The corners were frayed and white where the black finish had worn off. Anna opened it. There were no names inside, just dates and numbers. Columns and columns of them, written in Kenneth's tight, precise handwriting. January 12th, 1980, $200 February 10th, 1980, $200 Mar 14th, 1980, $200. Anna frowned. $200 a month. In 1980, that was a lot of money. That was their grocery budget for the whole month. She flipped forward 10 years. January 15th, 1990, $500 August 20th, 1990, $500 braces. The numbers were going up. Inflation, the cost of raising a child. She saw entries for tuition, car insurance, and rent. She walked out of the closet, clutching the notebook, and went to the kitchen table. She pushed the cold coffee mug aside and grabbed a notepad and a calculator from the junk drawer. She needed to see the total. She needed to see the cost of her ignorance. She started adding. The tapping of the calculator keys was the only sound in the house. 1985 total, $6,000. She remembered 1985. That was the year the transmission blew on her station wagon. Kenneth had told her they couldn't afford to fix it right away. She had taken the bus to the grocery store for 3 months. He had let her haul bags of groceries on the city bus in the Texas heat because he claimed money was tight. It wasn't tight. He had sent $6,000 to Georgia that year. 1995 total, $12,000. She remembered 1995. She had wanted to go to Italy for their 20th anniversary. She had saved brochures for months. Kenneth had sat her down, looking somber, and said, "The market is down, Anna. We just can't justify a trip like that right now. Maybe next year." They never went to Italy. Instead, he had bought David a used car and paid for a semester of college. The numbers blurred in her eyes, but she kept typing. 2005 total, $18,000. The wedding, the deposit for the catering that Linda had mentioned in her letter, That was Anna's kitchen renovation money. She had wanted new cabinets for a decade. Kenneth had told her the old ones were fine. Anna's breathing became shallow. The anger wasn't hot anymore. It was cold and heavy, settling in her gut like a stone. She wasn't just a wife who had been cheated on. She was a victim of theft. She reached the final page of the notebook. The entries for the last few years were larger. Lump sums. 2023, $40,000 down payment. The house in Laurel Heights. She hit the total button on the calculator. $248,500. Anna stared at the number. $250,000. That was their nest egg. That was the money she thought was sitting in their retirement account, gathering interest, waiting to take care of them if one of them got sick, waiting to pay for a nursing home, so they wouldn't be a burden on their daughter. She felt a wave of nausea. Kenneth hadn't just betrayed her heart. He had mortgaged her future. He had stolen her security to buy forgiveness from a woman he knocked up 40 years ago. She thought about the allowance he gave her every week, $200 for groceries and household items. If she wanted a new pair of shoes, she had to save from that allowance. She had scrimped. She had bought generic brands. She had mended socks instead of buying new ones. She had lived like a pauper, so he could play the generous father to a secret son. "You thief," she whispered. The word felt right. He was a thief. She looked at the notebook again. The last entry was dated 4 days ago, October 17th, $1,500. He had transferred money to them 4 days before his stroke. Anna stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. She didn't feel like crying anymore. The shock was gone. The sadness was gone. All that was left was a clarity so sharp it almost hurt. Kenneth thought she was simple. He thought she was the little woman who couldn't handle the math. He thought he could pat her on the head and distract her while he drained their life dry. She picked up the black notebook and shoved it into her purse next to the stack of letters. Then she grabbed her checkbook, not the household one he let her use, the one for the joint savings account she was never supposed to touch. She knew where the bank was. It was on the way to Laurel Heights. Anna checked her reflection in the hallway mirror. She looked pale, but her eyes were hard. She didn't look like the grieving wife anymore. She looked like an auditor. "It's too complicated for me, is it, Kenneth?" she said to the empty house. "Let's see how complicated it gets when the money runs out." She walked out the door and locked it behind her. She had a withdrawal to make. Anna's hands gripped the steering wheel of her 2008 Toyota Camry, so tightly her knuckles turned white. The car smelled faintly of stale vanilla air freshener, and the old upholstery she had been meaning to get cleaned for years, but never did because Kenneth said it was a waste of money. The air conditioning rattled as it blew lukewarm air against her face, a constant reminder of the corners they had cut. She was driving north on the highway, merging into traffic with a terrifying sense of purpose. The hospital was behind her. Her quiet, safe suburban cul-de-sac was behind her. She was following the blue line on her phone's GPS, heading toward a zip code she had never visited. Laurel Heights. Everyone in San Antonio knew Laurel Heights. It was established. It was elegant. It was the kind of neighborhood where the trees were older than the residents and the lawns were manicured by professionals, not by husbands pushing rusty mowers on Saturday mornings. The drive took 40 minutes. 40 minutes for Anna to replay the last 43 years in her mind. Every mile marker she passed felt like another memory she had to rewrite. The time Kenneth wouldn't let her buy the expensive orthopedic shoes when her feet hurt from standing all day. "We have to be careful, Anna," he had said. The time she wanted to paint the living room a soft sage green, but Kenneth said paint was too expensive that year, so they lived with the beige walls for another decade. She exited the highway, and the scenery changed. The strip malls and gas stations disappeared, replaced by stone walls and wrought iron gates. The houses here weren't cookie-cutter builds. They were unique, charming cottages and stately two-story homes set back from the street. Anna's GPS chirped. In 1/4 mile, your destination is on the right. She slowed down. Her heart was pounding, not with fear, but with a sick, heavy anticipation. She turned onto a street lined with massive oak trees that formed a canopy over the road. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. It was expensive. And then she saw it. The address from the letter. The address from the ledger. It was a single-story craftsman bungalow, painted a crisp, clean white with dark blue shutters. It sat on a slight hill, looking down at the street with an air of dignity. Anna pulled her car over to the curb a few houses down, killing the engine. She slouched low in her seat, peering over the dashboard, like a criminal. But she wasn't the criminal here. She stared at the house. It was perfect. The paint looked fresh, devoid of the peeling chips she constantly battled on her own siding. The landscaping was immaculate, rows of purple sage and bright marigolds lining the walkway. But her eyes were drawn upward. The roof. It was a new roof. High-quality, architectural shingles in a deep slate gray. Anna knew exactly how much a roof like that cost. 3 years ago, a storm had damaged the roof of their own home. Kenneth had climbed up there himself with a bucket of tar and some mismatched shingles because he swore they couldn't afford a contractor. It holds water, Anna, he had argued when she begged him to hire a professional. It doesn't have to look pretty. It just has to work. So, Anna lived under a patched, ugly roof that leaked in the guest room whenever it rained hard. But this house had a roof that cost $20,000. Easy. Anna felt a hot tear slide down her cheek. It wasn't sadness. It was rage. That was her roof. That was her leak-free guest room. That was the money she had saved by buying generic cereal and skipping lunches. Kenneth hadn't been saving the money. He had been diverting it. He had let his wife live in a patched-up house, so his mistress could live in a palace. Then, the front door opened. Anna stopped breathing. A woman stepped out onto the porch. It had to be Linda. She looked to be about Anna's age, maybe a few years younger. She was slim, wearing a loose linen blouse and comfortable gardening pants. She had silver hair cut in a stylish bob that moved softly in the breeze. She didn't look like a homewrecker. She didn't look like a villain. She looked content. Linda walked down the steps, holding a watering can. She moved with an ease that Anna envied. She didn't look tired. She didn't look worn down by decades of worry and scrimping. She looked like a woman who had been taken care of. Anna watched as Linda stopped by a bed of hydrangeas. She tilted the can, watering the flowers with a gentle, leisurely motion. She paused to deadhead a bloom, inspecting it with a smile. She looked happy. She looked secure. Anna gripped the steering wheel until her fingernails dug into the leather cover. A scream built up in her throat, a primal, guttural sound that wanted to shatter the windshield. She wanted to get out of the car. She wanted to march up that perfect walkway, past the perfect marigolds, and grab that watering can out of Linda's hand. She wanted to scream, "Do you know who paid for that water? Do you know who paid for that blouse? Do you know that while you're gardening in the middle of the day, I was mending my husband's socks so he could send you a check?" Her hand reached for the door handle. She was going to do it. She was going to explode. She was going to burn this perfect little life to the ground right now. But then Linda looked up. She waved at a neighbor walking a dog across the street. "Morning, Susan." Linda called out. Her voice was light, cheerful. "Beautiful day for it." "Linda," the neighbor called back. They smiled. They were neighbors, friends. Linda belonged here. This was her community. She was respected. She wasn't hiding in the shadows. She was living in the light, funded by Anna's darkness. Anna froze. Her hand dropped from the latch. If she got out of the car, now, she would just be the crazy woman screaming on the lawn. She would be the hysterical wife making a scene. Linda would look at her with pity. The neighbors would call the police. Kenneth, if he woke up, would say Anna was having a breakdown. Anna realized something crucial in that moment. Confrontation was cheap. Screaming was temporary. If she walked up there now, she might get 5 minutes of satisfaction, but she would lose the war. Linda was comfortable because Linda had resources. Kenneth had made sure of that. The ledger said he had sent them $40,000 for a down payment just last year. He had sent $1,500 4 days ago. Linda had money. Anna had a joint account that she hadn't checked in years. A cold clarity washed over Anna, extinguishing the fire in her chest. She didn't need to scream. She needed to settle the score. And you didn't settle a score like this with words. You settled it with assets. Anna looked at the house one last time. She memorized the pitch of the roof. She memorized the curve of the walkway. She memorized the peaceful look on Linda's face. "Enjoy the flowers, Linda," Anna whispered, her voice sounding terrifyingly calm even to her own ears. Because the water just got cut off. She put the car in drive. She didn't peel out. She didn't honk. She slowly pulled away from the curb, merging back onto the quiet tree-lined street. She wasn't going back to the hospital to hold Kenneth's hand. She wasn't going home to cry into his pillow. She had seen the ledger. She knew exactly how much was left in their joint savings account. It was a substantial amount, money Kenneth had likely been planning to siphon off slowly over the next few years to pay for Linda's retirement. Anna checked the time on the dashboard. 1:45 p.m. The bank was open until 5 o'clock. She had 3 hours to change the power dynamic of the last 40 years. Kenneth was in a coma. Linda was in her garden. Neither of them knew that the quiet, submissive wife had just woken up. Anna pressed the gas pedal. The old Toyota groaned, but it moved forward, carrying her toward the only thing that mattered now, the money. The automatic glass doors of the First National Bank slid open with a soft whoosh, hitting Anna with a blast of refrigerated air. It was a stark contrast to the humid Texas heat outside, and it made her shiver. Or maybe she was shivering because of what she was about to do. Anna clutched her purse tighter against her side. Inside, tucked next to the damning black notebook and the stack of letters, was her checkbook. It felt heavy, like a weapon she wasn't trained to use. She paused in the lobby, scanning the room. It was quiet. A security guard stood by the door, looking bored. A young mother was wrestling a toddler near the teller line. To the right, behind a low glass wall, sat the personal bankers at their mahogany desks. She recognized Mr. Henderson immediately. He was the branch manager. He was a man Kenneth played golf with occasionally. A man who sent them a Christmas card every year featuring his golden retrievers. Anna took a breath. She needed to look normal. She needed to look like the dutiful wife running an errand, not a woman about to commit financial mutiny. She smoothed down her skirt, checked her reflection in the glass partition, and walked straight toward Mr. Henderson's desk. "Mrs. Flores." Mr. Henderson looked up, a genuine smile breaking across his face. He stood up, buttoning his suit jacket. "Good to see you. I heard about Kenneth. How is he doing?" We were all so shocked. Anna forced the corners of her mouth up. It felt tight and unnatural. "Hello, Robert. He's stable. The doctors are hopeful, but he hasn't woken up yet." "I'm so sorry," Robert said, shaking his head. "If there is anything we can do, anything at all, you just let us know. Kenneth is a good man." The word stung. A good man. Everyone thought that. Anna had thought that until 3 hours ago. Now, hearing it felt like a slap in the face. Kenneth had built this reputation carefully, brick by brick, while using the mortar of their savings to build a life somewhere else. Actually, Robert, Anna said, her voice surprisingly steady. I'm here on business. I need to make some changes to our accounts. With Kenneth in the hospital, things are uncertain. I need to make sure everything is in order. Of course, Robert said, gesturing to the chair opposite him. Please sit down. We can handle whatever you need. Anna sat. The chair was leather, comfortable, and expensive. She wondered if the bank had paid for it with the fees Kenneth had paid over the years to transfer money to Georgia. Robert typed on his keyboard, his brow furrowed in concentration. All right, I have your accounts here. The checking is looking fine, and the joint savings, yes, here we are. He turned the screen slightly, so she couldn't see the full details, a habit of privacy. What can I help you with today? Do you need a cashier's check for medical expenses? The hospital can be demanding with deposits. Anna looked at his hands on the keyboard. They were waiting for a command. I need to close the joint savings account, Anna said. The typing stopped. The silence in the small cubicle seemed to stretch out, filling the space between them. Robert blinked, looking up at her over his reading glasses. Close it, he repeated. You mean withdraw the funds? Yes, Anna said. All of it. Robert gave a nervous little chuckle, as if she had made a joke he didn't quite understand. Mrs. Flores, that's a significant amount. There's just over $180,000 in there. That's your nest egg. Usually, people leave that earning interest unless they're buying property or... He trailed off, waiting for her to explain. He was waiting for the good wife explanation. He expected her to say they were buying a vacation home or maybe paying off the house. I know how much is in there, Robert, Anna said. She didn't offer an explanation. She realized in that moment that she didn't owe him one. Her name was on that account, Anna Flores. It was right next to Kenneth's. I want to withdraw the entire balance, she continued, her voice dropping an octave, becoming harder. And I want to open a new account, a separate savings account, in my name only. Robert leaned back in his chair, his professional mask slipping just a fraction. He looked concerned. Anna, does Kenneth know about this? Usually with a transaction this size, we like to have both parties present, or at least aware. I know you're joint owners, so legally you have the right, but... Kenneth is in a coma. Robert, Anna cut him off. He isn't aware of anything right now. Right, of course. Robert stammered. It's just, is everything okay? I mean, financially, you aren't being pressured by anyone, are you? We have protocols to protect our older clients from scams. If someone called you, I am being pressured. Anna said, I am being pressured by the reality that my husband might not wake up. And if he does, he might require long-term care that I need to control. I need to secure these funds. Robert, today, right now. It was a lie, but it was close enough to the truth. She was protecting the funds. She was protecting them from David. She was protecting them from Linda's roof repairs and Linda's garden parties. Robert hesitated. He looked at the screen, then back at Anna. He was a man who followed rules, but he was also a man who didn't want to upset the wife of a friend who was fighting for his life. He likely thought she was hysterical with grief, making irrational decisions out of panic. Okay, Robert said slowly. I can do that for you, but I have to advise you that moving this money into a sole account means Kenneth will no longer have access to it. His name will be removed from the funds entirely. I understand, Anna said. Inside, her mind was screaming. That is the point, Robert. That is exactly the point. Very well. The next 10 minutes were the longest of Anna's life. She watched Robert type. She heard the click of the mouse. Every second that ticked by felt like a danger. What if Kenneth woke up right now? What if he had a fail-safe? What if he had alerted the bank years ago to never let Anna take the money? She thought about the black notebook in her purse. She thought about the $248,500 that was already gone. The $180,000 sitting in this account was all that was left. It was her survival. She was 68 years old. She had no career. She had no pension of her own. She had spent her life managing a home that Kenneth treated like a hotel for his double life. If she left this money here, and Kenneth woke up, he could transfer it all to Linda with a single phone call. He could tell Anna he was investing it. He could tell her it was gone. And she would be left with nothing but the good china and a drawer full of coupons. Almost done, Robert said, the printer behind him whirred to life, spitting out forms. He placed a stack of papers in front of her. Sign here to close the joint account, and here to open the new one. I've set it up as a high-yield savings, just like the old one. Anna picked up the pen. Her hand was trembling. She looked at the line for the signature. Joint account closure. Balance transfer, $182,405. She signed. The ink looked dark and permanent against the white paper. Then she moved to the next form. Account owner, Anna Flores. Just Anna. No Kenneth. She signed that one, too. Okay, Robert said, gathering the papers. It's done. The funds have been transferred. The joint account is now closed. It has a zero balance. He handed her a receipt. Anna took it. She stared at the number at the bottom of the joint account summary. $0. A strange sensation washed over her. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't triumph. It was relief, mixed with a terrifying sense of finality. She had just robbed her husband. She had just stripped a dying man of his life savings. If the ladies at her church knew, they would be scandalized. They would say, "You wait until he wakes up, Anna. You talk it out. You don't leave him penniless while he's on a ventilator." But the ladies at church didn't know about David. They didn't know about the house in Laurel Heights. "Here is your new debit card and your account information," Robert said, handing her a folder. He looked uncomfortable, like he had just witnessed something he shouldn't have. I hope Kenneth pulls through. Anna." "Thank you, Robert," Anna said. She stood up, her legs feeling a little unsteady but holding her weight. "I'm sure he'll be surprised when he wakes up." She walked out of the bank, the folder tucked under her arm. The heat outside hit her again, but this time she didn't shiver. She got into her car and sat there for a moment, staring at the dashboard. She imagined Kenneth waking up. She imagined the first thing he would do after asking for water. He would ask about the money. He would want to make sure his secret payments were safe. He would reach for his phone. He would check the app. And he would see nothing. "I'm taking it back," Anna whispered to the empty car. "He gave our future away for 40 years. I'm taking what's left." She thought about Linda watering her hydrangeas at the house Anna paid for. If Kenneth wanted to help Linda now, he would have to ask her for a loan. If he wanted to pay for David's next car, he would have to explain to Anna why he needed the money. The power had shifted. For the first time in their marriage, Anna held the purse strings, and she wasn't planning on loosening them. She started the engine. It was time to go back to the hospital. She had to be there when he woke up. She had to be the dutiful wife sitting by his bedside. But this time, she wouldn't be praying for his recovery, so they could go back to normal. She would be waiting for him to wake up, so she could watch him realize that his secrets had cost him everything. Anna put the car in drive and pulled out of the parking lot. She had $182,405 in her name, and Kenneth Flores had absolutely nothing. Anna walked back into the hospital room, and the first thing she noticed was the sound. The rhythmic, steady beep, beep, beep of the heart monitor was the only thing filling the silence. It was the sound of Kenneth's life, measured out in electronic pulses. Before she had left for the bank, that sound had terrified her. It had sounded like a countdown to a life without him. Now, it just sounded like a clock ticking away the time until he had to answer for what he had done. She closed the door softly behind her. The room was dim, lit only by the fluorescent light above the sink and the glow of the monitors. Kenneth was exactly where she had left him, propped up slightly on pillows, his face pale and slack. A tube was still taped to his hand, feeding him fluids. He looked helpless. He looked like a man who needed his wife. Anna walked to the vinyl recliner in the corner, the uncomfortable visitor chair, where wives were supposed to sit and pray. She didn't pray. She sat down, placing her purse on her lap. She crossed her legs and smoothed her skirt. Inside that purse sat the evidence of a double life: the stack of letters from Linda, the black notebook of stolen numbers, and the fresh bank receipt showing a balance of $0.00. She felt a strange sense of calm. It was the calm of a soldier who has checked their weapon and is just waiting for the enemy to cross the ridge. She watched his chest rise and fall, up and down, up and down. For 43 years, she had synchronized her life to his rhythm. She had woken up when he woke up. She had eaten when he was hungry. She had turned off the lights when he was tired. Not anymore, Kenneth, she whispered to the room. An hour passed, then two. The nurses came in to check his vitals, offering Anna sympathetic smiles. "He's doing well," one young nurse said, patting Anna's shoulder. "His vitals are strong. He might wake up any time now." Anna just nodded. "I'll be right here," she said, and she meant it. She wasn't going anywhere. It happened around 4:30 in the afternoon. The sun was starting to slant through the blinds, casting long, striped shadows across the bedsheets. Kenneth's hand twitched. Then his eyelids fluttered. Anna sat up straighter. She didn't rush to the bed. She didn't grab his hand. She just watched. Kenneth let out a low groan, a sound of confusion and discomfort. His eyes opened slowly, trying to focus on the ceiling tiles. He blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of the tubes, the beeping, the sterile smell. Panic started to creep into his expression as he realized he wasn't in his own bed. Then he turned his head and saw her. His eyes locked onto Anna. Instantly, the panic in his face smoothed out. His shoulders relaxed. He smiled, a weak, crooked, relieved smile. It was the smile of a man who knew his safety net was in place. He saw Anna, his loyal, quiet Anna, sitting in the corner, and he assumed everything was fine. He assumed she had been there the whole time, worrying, crying, waiting to serve him. He tried to speak, but his voice was a rasp. He licked his dry lips and tried again. "Anna," he croaked. It was barely a whisper. "Water." It was a command, not a question. It was the same tone he used when he was watching football and wanted a refill on his iced tea. "Anna, water." In any other timeline, Anna would have been on her feet before the word was fully out of his mouth. She would have grabbed the plastic pitcher, poured a cup, put the straw to his lips, and shushed him gently, telling him everything was okay. But Anna didn't move. She stayed seated in the vinyl chair, her hands resting calmly on her purse. She looked at him, her face completely blank. She didn't smile back. Kenneth's brow furrowed. He looked confused. He wasn't used to a delay. He thought maybe she hadn't heard him. "Anna," he said again, a little louder this time, wincing at the pain in his throat. "Thirsty. Water." Anna slowly uncrossed her legs. She stood up. Kenneth's eyes followed her, expecting her to walk to the tray table where the water pitcher sat. Instead, Anna walked to her purse. She unzipped it. The sound of the zipper was loud in the quiet room. She didn't pull out a water bottle. She reached in and grabbed the plastic-wrapped bundle of letters. The rubber band was gone, and the yellowed envelopes were loose in her hand. She walked over to the bed, standing right over him. Kenneth looked up at her, his eyes hazy. He didn't recognize the bundle at first. He was too focused on his thirst. "Water?" he asked again, confused by what she was holding. Anna didn't say a word. She simply let the letters drop. They fluttered down onto his chest, landing on the white hospital blanket. The top letter, the one from 1975, slid off and landed near his neck. The photo of him standing next to the boy, with the red bicycle-landed face up on his stomach. Kenneth froze. The air seemed to leave his lungs. He looked down at the papers on his chest. He saw the handwriting, that looping, blue cursive he had known for 4 decades. He saw the photo. His eyes went wide, snapping up to meet Anna's. The grogginess vanished instantly, replaced by a jolt of pure adrenaline. The heart monitor picked up the pace. Beep, 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 beep. "Anna," he wheezed, his voice trembling now. Where did you—" "I cleaned the closet, Kenneth," Anna said. Her voice was flat. No yelling, no tears, just a simple statement of fact. "I was looking for your suit. I found your boots instead." Kenneth tried to sit up, but his body was too weak. His hands scrambled uselessly at the letters, trying to cover them up, trying to hide the evidence that was already staring his wife in the face. "Anna, listen, it's not— I can explain." "Don't," she cut him off. "Don't you dare try to explain 40 years of lies to me in 5 minutes. He looked terrified. For the first time in their marriage, he looked small. He looked at her, pleading with his eyes, realizing that the woman standing over him wasn't the woman he had married. She was a stranger. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "Anna, I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. It wasn't a long time ago," Anna said. She reached into her purse again. "The last letter was from 3 weeks ago. You moved them here, Kenneth, to Laurel Heights." Kenneth flinched at the name of the neighborhood. He knew she knew everything. "But that's not the worst part," Anna continued. She pulled out the folded piece of paper from the bank. The ink was still fresh. "The worst part isn't the boy. It isn't even Linda. It's the math, Kenneth." She unfolded the receipt. She held it up so he could see it clearly. She pointed to the bottom line. "Account closed. Balance, $0. I went to the bank today," she said. "I saw the notebook in your pocket. I saw the $200,000 you stole from us. So I took the rest." Kenneth stared at the receipt. His face went from pale to a sickly shade of gray. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The monitor was beeping frantically now, a high-tempo alarm that signaled distress. "You took it?" he whispered. "Anna, that's everything." "I know," she said. "It's my turn to handle the finances. Kenneth, you've done enough." "But I'm sick," he stammered, tears welling up in his eyes. "I need the bills, the hospital." "You have insurance," Anna said coldly. "And if that runs out, well, maybe you can ask Linda for a loan. I saw her house today. It has a very nice roof. I'm sure she has some equity in it." She dropped the receipt onto his chest, right on top of the photo of his secret son. "Anna, please," he begged, reaching out a shaking hand toward her. "Don't do this. I love you. You're my wife." Anna looked at his hand. It was the hand that had held hers at the altar. It was the hand that had signed the checks to the other woman for 40 years. She didn't take it. "I was your wife," Anna said. "Now, I'm just your creditor." The door to the room burst open. A nurse rushed in, eyes scanning the monitors. "Mrs. Flores?" His heart rate is spiking. "Is everything okay? Did something happen?" Anna stepped back from the bed. She smoothed her purse strap over her shoulder. She looked at the nurse with a calm, polite expression. "He just woke up," Anna said. "He's a little agitated. He realized he forgot to pay a bill." She looked back at Kenneth one last time. He was gasping, clutching the letters and the receipt to his chest, drowning in the mess he had made. "I'm going to the cafeteria to get some coffee," Anna said. "I think he needs a moment to rest." She turned and walked out of the room, leaving him alone with the beeping machine and the ruins of his double life. Anna stayed in the cafeteria for exactly 30 minutes. She drank a cup of black coffee that tasted like burnt cardboard, watching the clock on the wall. She wasn't hiding. She was letting him stew. She knew Kenneth better than anyone. She knew that right now, lying in that hospital bed, his mind was racing. He was rehearsing his speech. He was building his defense. Kenneth had been a salesman for 40 years. He knew how to spin a disaster into a pitch. He just needed time to figure out the angle. When she finally walked back into the room, the nurse had tidied up. The letters were no longer scattered on his chest. They were stacked neatly on the bedside table, right next to the pitcher of water. Kenneth was sitting up more fully now, the head of the bed raised. His color was better, less gray, and more flushed, though Anna suspected the flush came from panic rather than health. He watched her come in. His eyes were wet, red-rimmed. He had been crying. "Anna," he said, his voice thick. He didn't demand water this time. He sounded broken. "Please, close the door. Sit down." Anna closed the door, but didn't sit. She stood at the foot of the bed, her hands clasped in front of her. She looked at him like a judge looking at a defendant. "Talk," she said. One word. That was all she gave him. Kenneth took a shaky breath. He looked at the stack of letters, then back at her. "It's not what you think. I mean, the letters are real. The boy, David, he's real. But the story isn't what you think it is. I think you have a son you hid for 40 years, Anna said. "I think you bought his mother a house with my retirement money. Which part of that is wrong?" "I didn't love her," Kenneth blurted out. The force of it made him cough, his hand clutching his chest. "Anna, you have to believe me. I never loved her. Not really. Not like I love you." Anna didn't blink. "You sent her $250,000, Kenneth. That's a very expensive way to not love someone. It was duty." Kenneth cried. Tears spilled onto his cheeks. "It was 1975, Anna. I was young. I was stupid. I was lonely in Georgia, and she was there. But then I met you. When I came to Texas and met you, I knew. I knew within a week that you were the one. I tried to end it with Linda. I wrote her a letter breaking it off. I told her I had found the woman I was going to marry." He paused, waiting for Anna to soften. She didn't. And then, he whispered, she wrote back. She was pregnant. Kenneth looked down at his hands, picking at the hospital blanket. "You know about my dad, Anna? You know he walked out on my mom when I was 6. You know I grew up watching her scrape by, watching her cry at the kitchen table because he didn't send a dime. I swore on my life I would never be that man. I couldn't be a deadbeat. I couldn't leave a child out in the world with nothing. So you decided to give him everything," Anna said, "including my kitchen renovation, including our trips, including my security. I had to support him." Kenneth insisted, his voice rising. "He was my blood, but I didn't want to lose you. If I had told you back in 1976 that I had a baby on the way in Georgia, you would have left me. You know you would have. Your father would have never let you marry a man with that kind of baggage." He was right, and that made Anna hate him more. He had stolen her choice. He had decided that his need to be a good father was more important than her right to know who she was marrying. "So I made a deal," Kenneth said, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. "I told Linda I would take care of them, financially. I promised her she would never want for anything as long as she stayed in Georgia and never contacted you. I bought my freedom, Anna. I bought the life I wanted with you." "You bought it with my money," Anna reminded him. "It was our money." Kenneth snapped, a flash of his old temper showing through. "I worked for it, too. I worked 60-hour weeks. I took those extra shifts. I traveled for business. You traveled to see them. Anna cut in. I saw the photos, Kenneth. The Christmas of '85. The graduation. You weren't working. You were playing dad. Kenneth slumped back against the pillows. I had to visit sometimes. He was a boy, Anna. He asked about me. What was I supposed to do? Tell him I didn't care? I went there to keep the peace. I went there to keep Linda quiet so she wouldn't call the house. I did it to protect us. He looked at her with pleading eyes, trying to pull her into his delusion. He truly believed it. He believed he was the hero of this story, a man who carried a heavy burden alone to spare his wife. He didn't see himself as a liar. He saw himself as a martyr. I gave her the money, Kenneth said softly. But I gave you my life, Anna. I came home to you every night. I slept in your bed. I held your hand when your mother died. I raised Sarah with you. Linda got the check. You got the man. Anna felt a cold laugh bubbling up in her chest. I got the man, she repeated. I got the man who complained about the cost of a movie ticket. I got the man who made me feel guilty for buying name-brand coffee. I got the man who let me walk around in a coat with a broken zipper for 2 winters because we need to tighten our belts. You weren't tightening our belts, Kenneth. You were tightening mine, so you could loosen hers. Kenneth shook his head. I was trying to be fair. I was trying to do the right thing by everyone. There is no fair when you're living a lie, Anna said. Kenneth closed his eyes for a moment, the beeping of the monitor speeding up again. When he opened them, the sorrow was gone, replaced by a desperate, sharp edge. He was done talking about the past. He was thinking about the immediate future. Anna, he said, his voice trembling. The receipt. The bank account. You didn't really do that, did you? You didn't really move all the money. I did, she said. Every penny. You have to put it back, he said. It wasn't a request. It was a frantic plea. I'm sick, Anna. Look at me. I had a stroke. I can't work anymore. I can't make more money. That savings account, that's all I have. That's all we have. Anna corrected him. And now it's safe. Safe. Kenneth choked out a laugh. You stole it. You can't leave me here with nothing. What if I need rehab? What if I need a nurse? You have to transfer it back to the joint account. Today. Right now. Before anyone finds out. Finds out. Anna stepped closer to the bed. Who is going to find out, Kenneth? Linda. He flinched. That's what this is really about, Anna said, her voice dropping to a whisper. You aren't worried about your hospital bills. Medicare covers that. You're worried about the first of the month. You're worried about the mortgage payment for the house in Laurel Heights. You're worried that the check is going to bounce and Linda is going to call here asking where her money is. Kenneth's face turned a deep, blotchy red. She depends on me. She's an old woman, Anna. She can't work. If the money stops, she loses the house. David can't support her. I promised her. You promised me, Anna said. You promised to love and cherish. You promised to be honest. You broke those promises every single day for 43 years. Now you want me to honor your promise to your mistress. It's not about her. Kenneth shouted, his voice cracking. It's about me. I'm your husband. How can you be so cold? I made a mistake, okay? A long, expensive mistake. But I'm still the man you married. I'm still the father of your daughter. Does 40 years mean nothing to you? Are you really going to let me rot here, worrying about money just to spite me? He was crying openly now, ugly, gasping sobs. He looked pathetic. He looked like a frightened old man who had lost control of his world. I protected you, Anna, he wailed. I kept you safe from this. I carried the guilt alone, so you could be happy. Doesn't that count for something? Doesn't my suffering count? Anna watched him cry. Part of her, the part that had ironed his shirts and cooked his meals, wanted to reach out. She wanted to tell him they would figure it out. She wanted to believe that he did it out of a warped sense of duty. He hadn't run off. He hadn't left her for a younger woman. He had stayed. He had tried, in his own broken way, to be a father to both families. But then she remembered the roof. She remembered the fresh, expensive shingles on the house in Laurel Heights, and the water stain on her own ceiling at home. He hadn't suffered. He had felt noble. He had felt important. He got to be the hero to Linda for saving her, and the hero to Anna for staying. He had played both sides, and used Anna's debit card to pay for the ticket. "You didn't protect me, Kenneth," Anna said quietly. "You used me. You used my frugality to fund your guilt." "Put the money back," Kenneth hissed, his sadness turning into venom. "If you don't put the money back, Anna, I swear, I'll tell everyone. I'll tell Sarah you're stealing from a sick man. Tell her," Anna said, "please call our daughter. Tell her everything. Tell her about David. Tell her about the bicycle. Tell her why she had to take out student loans while her father paid cash for another man's tuition." Kenneth's mouth snapped shut. He knew he couldn't make that call. He had no leverage. "I'm tired, Kenneth," Anna said. She felt the exhaustion settling into her bones. "I'm going home." "You can't leave me," he screamed, trying to pull himself up by the bed rails. The monitor alarm started blaring again. "Anna, you can't leave me with nothing." "I'm not leaving you with nothing," Anna said, turning toward the door. "I left you the letters. You can read them. Maybe they'll keep you warm." She walked out into the hallway as the nurses rushed past her to attend to her screaming husband. She didn't look back. She walked straight to the elevator, her purse heavy on her shoulder, holding the only thing that mattered now, the debit card that controlled their future. The elevator ride down to the hospital lobby felt like descending from a different planet. Anna watched the numbers light up. 4, 3, 2, 1. And with every floor, the sound of Kenneth's desperate screaming faded further away. By the time the doors slid open to the bustling lobby, the only sound was the squeak of nurses' shoes on tile and the hum of the vending machines. She walked out into the parking lot. The Texas sun was beginning to dip, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange. It was a beautiful evening, the kind Kenneth used to love. He would sit on their back porch with a cheap beer and say, "Doesn't get better than this, Anna." She realized now that he wasn't admiring the view. He was admiring his own cleverness. He was toasting to the fact that he had pulled off another day of deception. Anna got into her car. The dashboard was hot to the touch. She put the key in the ignition, but she didn't turn it immediately. She sat in the silence, her hands resting on the steering wheel. She looked at her phone. It was buzzing. A number she didn't save, probably the hospital desk, or maybe a nurse Kenneth had begged to use a phone. She pressed the ignore button. Then, with a deliberate motion, she powered the phone off completely. She tossed it onto the passenger seat. Kenneth couldn't reach her now. He couldn't manipulate her. He couldn't spin another story about duty or sacrifice. He was stuck in a bed she wasn't paying for, with a conscience she no longer carried. She started the car. The check engine light flickered on, a steady orange glow that had been there for 6 months. Kenneth had told her it was just a sensor glitch, and not to worry about it because mechanics were thieves. Anna laughed, a dry, sharp sound in the empty car. Mechanics were thieves? Her husband had stolen $250,000 from her, and he was worried about a mechanic overcharging for a sensor. She put the car in reverse and pulled out of the lot. She wasn't going home. Home was just a box where she kept her clothes. It wasn't a sanctuary. It was a crime scene of 43 years of fraud. She turned north, back toward the highway, back toward Laurel Heights. The drive was different this time. Earlier that afternoon, She had driven with confusion and shock. Now, she drove with clarity. She thought about the timeline Kenneth had laid out. He said he did it for the boy. He said he did it because he didn't want to be a deadbeat like his father. It sounded noble if you didn't look at the math. But Anna had looked at the math. She thought about the year Sarah needed braces. Kenneth had made them wait 6 months, claiming they needed to save up. Sarah had gone to school embarrassed, covering her mouth, when she laughed. During those same 6 months, according to the Black Notebook, Kenneth had sent $3,000 to Georgia. He hadn't made Sarah wait because they were poor. He made Sarah wait because Linda needed a new washer and dryer. The rage that had been a hot fire in her chest settled into something colder, something harder. It settled into resolve. Kenneth thought the game was over because she took the money. He thought the punishment was him lying in a hospital bed broke. But the game wasn't over. There was still one player left on the board. She took the exit for Laurel Heights. The sun was lower now, casting long, golden shadows across the manicured lawns. The neighborhood was settling in for the evening. Sprinklers hissed to life, watering emerald green grass. Expensive SUVs pulled into driveways. Anna turned onto the street. Linda's street. The house looked even more inviting in the twilight. The windows were glowing with warm, yellow light. It looked cozy. It looked safe. It looked like the kind of home where people didn't worry about the electric bill, because a nice man in San Antonio sent a check every month. Anna pulled her Toyota up to the curb, right in front of the walkway. She put the car in park and killed the engine. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. She looked tired. Her gray hair was a little messy, and her eyes were red-rimmed. But she also looked fierce. She applied a fresh coat of lipstick. It was a small armor, but it made her feel ready. She grabbed her purse, the purse that held the debit card with $182,405 on it. That card was her shield. It was her leverage. She stepped out of the car. The air smelled of jasmine and fresh-cut grass. It was the smell of money. Anna walked up the path. Her sensible shoes clicked against the flagstones. She noticed the details she had missed earlier from the car. The heavy brass knocker on the door. The wreath made of dried silk flowers. The rocking chairs on the porch that looked brand new. She reached the door. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her hand was steady. She didn't hesitate. She didn't second-guess herself. She pressed the doorbell. Ding-dong. A deep, rich chime echoed from inside. Anna waited. She heard footsteps, soft, padded footsteps. No rushing, no panic, just the leisurely pace of a woman who had nothing to fear. The lock clicked. The handle turned. The door opened. Linda stood there, up close. She looked even more like Anna than she had from the street. They had the same build, the same height. Kenneth certainly had a type, but Linda's face was smoother, less lined by worry. She was wearing a soft cardigan over her blouse and holding a glass of white wine. She looked at Anna with a polite, questioning smile. She didn't recognize her at first. Why would she? Anna was the ghost in Linda's story, the nameless, faceless wife in the background who paid the bills. "Can I help you?" Linda asked. Her voice was pleasant, with a faint trace of a Georgia accent that 40 years in Texas hadn't erased. Anna didn't speak immediately. She took a moment to study this woman. This was the woman Kenneth had protected. This was the woman who got the best of him, while Anna got the rest of him. "You have a lovely home," Anna said. Her voice was calm, conversational. Linda blinked, confused. "Thank you. Are you selling something? We have a no soliciting sign." "I'm not selling anything," Anna said. She took a step closer, crossing the threshold of the porch so she was standing under the light. "I'm actually here to collect." Linda frowned, tilting her head. "Collect? I don't understand." Who are you? I recognize the roof, Anna continued, ignoring the question. She gestured vaguely upward. It's slate, isn't it? Very expensive. My husband told me we couldn't afford slate. He said asphalt was good enough for us. But I see he didn't say that to you. Linda went still. The wine glass in her hand trembled slightly, the liquid sloshing against the rim. She stared at Anna, her eyes widening as the pieces clicked into place. The age, the reference to the husband, the bitterness in the tone. Oh my God, Linda whispered. The color drained from her face. She took a stumbling step back, gripping the doorframe. You're Anna. I am, Anna said. Kenneth, Linda stammered, looking past Anna to the street, as if expecting him to be there. Is Kenneth okay? Did something happen? Why are you here? Kenneth is in the hospital, Anna said. He had a stroke. Linda gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Oh no. Is he alive? He's alive, Anna said. He woke up a few hours ago. We had a very long talk. He told me everything. He told me about David. He told me about the letters. And he told me about the deal. Linda looked terrified. She looked like a child caught stealing candy. Mrs. Flores, please. I never wanted to cause trouble. Kenneth said he handled it. He said you didn't know. I didn't know, Anna said. Not until I found the ledger in his pocket. Not until I added up the numbers. $248,000. Linda, that's what my husband transferred to you over the years. Linda stayed silent, her eyes darting around, looking for an escape. But here is the news, Anna said, stepping forward. So, she was right in the doorway. She wasn't shouting. She was deadly quiet. I went to the bank today. I closed the joint account. Kenneth has nothing left. No savings. No checking. No secret stash. Linda's eyes widened in horror. What? The money is gone, Anna said, savoring the words. Every cent he promised you, it's in my name now. And I'm not the one who made promises to you. But Linda's voice shook. The mortgage, David's student loans. Kenneth pays those. We have an arrangement. Your arrangement was with a man who lied to both of us. Anna said, that man is broke. If you want the mortgage paid next month, I suggest you ask David to get a job. Or maybe you can sell this beautiful house. I hear the market is very good right now. You can't do that, Linda whispered, tears filling her eyes. You can't just cut us off. It's not fair. Anna laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. Fair? I've been eating leftovers and wearing old shoes for 40 years so you could drink wine in a slate-roofed house. I think we're finally getting to fair. She reached into her purse and pulled out the black notebook, the ledger of Kenneth's betrayal. She tossed it onto the porch at Linda's feet. Here, Anna said, you can keep his records. It's the only thing you're getting from the Flores family from now on. Linda looked down at the black book, then back up at Anna, stunned into silence. She looked small now. The confidence of the secure, well-kept woman was gone. She was just an old woman standing in a doorway, realizing the free ride was over. Anna stood tall. She felt lighter than she had in decades. The weight of the secret wasn't hers to carry anymore. She had returned it to its rightful owners. She smiled, a strong, dangerous smile that reached her eyes. Hello, Linda, she said softly. We have some accounting to discuss. Or rather, the discussion is over. Anna didn't wait for a response. She turned around and walked back down the path. The sound of the door slamming shut behind her echoed in the quiet evening air, but she didn't flinch. She got back into her car and started the engine. The check engine light was still on, glowing orange on the dashboard. Anna looked at it and shrugged. I'll get that fixed tomorrow, she said aloud. I can afford it now. She put the car in drive and pulled away from the curb, leaving the beautiful house and the ugly secret in her rearview mirror. She drove toward the highway, toward the rest of her life. The sun had finally set, but for Anna Flores, the day was just beginning. Did Anna do the right thing by emptying the bank account before hearing his side of the story? Tell us in the comments. What city are you listening from? And what time is it there? Write it in the comments. And if you'd like to help me keep sharing these emotional, thrilling stories every day, even a small donation makes a big difference. It truly helps keep the channel alive. For more life stories like this, you can explore the other videos on my channel and subscribe. On the screen, you'll see 2 new stories I'm sure you'll enjoy. Click one and start listening right away. With love,